Admiral Vextar had seen many species fall before the might of the hegemony's war machine. The crystalline Zephyrians with their energy shields, the insectoid hive minds with their numerical superiority, the gaseous ethereals with their phase-shifting abilities, all had crumbled when faced with the hegemony's advanced weaponry and tactical superiority. Now, as he studied the tactical display aboard his flagship, he couldn't suppress the mandible clicking that passed for laughter among his kind. The humans had committed what could only be described as a tactical blunder of epic proportions. "They've sent foot soldiers," his aide, Commander Zilmoth, reported with barely concealed amusement. "Ground infantry. No mechs, no heavy armor divisions, no orbital support platforms, just soldiers." The holographic battlefield showed the Kepler-7 front, a crucial choke point that had held back 3 hegemony advances. The humans had finally reinforced it, but instead of the expected technological marvels that had made them surprisingly resilient in space combat, they had deployed what appeared to be nothing more than bipedal mammals carrying primitive kinetic weapons. "How many?" Vextar asked, though he was already calculating victory ratios in his head. "Approximately 2,000 humans. Our intelligence suggests they're calling them veterans, apparently soldiers from previous conflicts." Zilmoth's translation circuits struggled with the human term. "Our ground forces number 50,000 with full combat enhancement and energy weaponry." Vextar's 4 eyes gleamed. The humans had handed him the front on a silver platter. Within hours, Kepler-7 would fall, and the path to the human core worlds would be open. The battle began at dawn, Kepler-7's twin suns casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Vextar watched through drone feeds as his forces advanced in perfect formation, a wall of death that had broken 100 worlds. The humans waited. They had dug in overnight, creating what appeared to be rudimentary fortifications. No energy barriers, no automated defense systems, just holes in the ground and piled rocks. It was almost insulting. "Sir," Zilmoth's voice carried a note of confusion. "The humans. They're not retreating." Vextar focused on the display. Indeed, as his overwhelming force approached, the humans remained in their positions. A few had even stood up, weapons ready, facing down an army 25 times their size. The first exchange of fire lit up the morning sky. Hegemony energy weapons lanced out, striking human positions. But the return fire was different. The kinetic rounds moved in patterns that seemed almost artistic, finding gaps in armor, ricocheting off rocks to strike from unexpected angles, coordinating with mathematical precision despite the apparent chaos. "How are they?" Zilmoth began, then stopped as the tactical display updated. Vextar's perfect formation was developing holes. Not just casualties, formations had casualties. These were tactical voids where entire squads had simply ceased to exist, eliminated with surgical precision by what should have been inferior opponents. One of the drone feeds caught his attention. A single human soldier, gray-haired and moving with economy of motion that spoke of decades of experience, had positioned himself behind a boulder cluster. As hegemony forces attempted to flank the human positions, this one individual began picking them off with shots that defied probability. Each round found its mark, and the soldier moved between firing positions like water flowing downhill, always where he needed to be, never where the enemy expected. "Get me a tactical analysis of that soldier," Vextar ordered. The AI's response was immediate and disturbing. "Subject demonstrates predictive targeting, consistent with 40-plus years of combat experience. Movement patterns suggest familiarity with 17 different combat environments. Weapon handling indicates professional military training with continuous field application." 40 years. Vextar felt his primary stomach clench. Most species barely lived 40 years, let alone spent that time in active combat. Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. Human soldiers who moved like they had fought on 1,000 worlds, who anticipated enemy tactics before they were implemented, who turned every piece of terrain into a weapon. These weren't just foot soldiers. They were walking repositories of military knowledge, each one a library of warfare written in blood and experience. The human defensive line didn't break, it flowed. When hegemony forces concentrated on one position, the humans would fade back, drawing them into carefully prepared kill zones. When the enemy tried to exploit a gap, they would find themselves surrounded by soldiers who seemed to materialize from the landscape itself. "Sir, we're taking massive casualties," Zilmoth reported, his voice strained. "Tactical Command is requesting immediate reinforcement." Vextar watched as his numerical advantage evaporated. Each human veteran seemed worth 10, 20, sometimes 50 of his soldiers. They fought with a coordination that transcended technology, a unity forged in countless battles where survival had depended on trusting the soldier next to you completely. By midday, something impossible was happening. The human line was advancing. 2,000 veterans, using weapons that were museum pieces by galactic standards, had not only held against overwhelming odds, they were pushing back an army. They moved like a single organism, each veteran knowing exactly where their comrades were, what they were thinking, what they would do next. "How is this possible?" Zilmoth whispered. Vextar understood now why the humans had sent veterans instead of their advanced technology. These weren't just soldiers, they were artists of war, and their canvas was the battlefield itself. Every crater, every rock, every shadow had become part of their strategy. They weren't fighting with superior technology. They were fighting with superior humanity. The retreat began at sunset. What remained of Vextar's ground force pulled back in disarray, harassed every step of the way by human veterans who seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. As the flagship prepared to withdraw from Kepler 7th, Vextar studied the after-action reports. 50,000 hegemony soldiers, routed by 2,000 humans who had turned an entire front into their personal domain. In his log, he would write, "Human foot soldiers represent an unprecedented combat threat. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment of invasion plans." Note, never underestimate the combat effectiveness of human veterans. But privately, as he watched the planet fall away beneath them, Admiral Vextar felt something he had never experienced in decades of conquest. Respect for an enemy that had just taught the galaxy what it truly meant to be a warrior.